Madam Chair, we are live.
Okay, good evening, everyone, and welcome to the 14th meeting of the 2020 Overview Commission. Today it's Thursday, August 6th. I welcome all the members that are here and anyone that may be joining us over the virtual WebEx. You'll see the agenda is now posted. I wanted to open the meeting with just a couple of comments. As you can see from the agenda, we'll follow the normal procedures, and we have a couple members who are ready to present some of their work, all in different stages of development. And we're going to have a small discussion here. I don't know whether to have it at the beginning or the end of the meeting, but I did want to let you all know the status of our membership. So as you're all aware, we have had several members who have departed the Overview Commission, some earlier and some later. And of course, the most recent one was of the vice chair. You are all probably in receipt. I forwarded his letter to the mayor and to the manager regarding his decision to put in his resignation. So that was a difficult decision for him, I'm sure. Difficult for me to kind of get through the process of thinking through his actions. So since he has submitted that, other members have formally submitted their resignations. Some we probably knew or aware already was having difficulty to maintain their commitment to the commission for either personal or professional reasons, for the most part. And these members are Peter, who submitted a resignation because his work requirements just didn't allow him to continue his commitment to the OC. And Alex, who also submitted his resignation. We probably expected that because we have not seen him for a little while. He actually has moved out of the county, and he was working through a lot of problems that he had during the beginning of the COVID thing as far as work and the work of his partner. So they ended up having to move based on work commitments. And so he is no longer eligible to serve on the commission, and he let me know that this week. So for a total now of those that we have formally accepted their resignations is 6 members. We have 2 other members who kind of conditionally submitted resignations, but have agreed to try to continue to work on the commission. So by my count then, we have 11 members who are still on the commission, at least officially, and that puts us right at a quorum. So at if we drop below 11 members, if the other 2 members, actually other 3 members that we haven't seen, if we get below that number, then we're going to have a lot of trouble to be able to maintain our validity as a commission, because we cannot, just based on our numbers. So I wanted to let you all know that, to be aware of that. We have had, as you read John's comments, there's other members that agree with at least part of the things that he had said in there, who thought that we were being too ambitious and trying to be able to do anything else but the absolute minimum. And he believed that we had agreed to that as a group, although subsequent to that, we submitted our member survey to identify additional areas that we thought we might be able to accomplish given the unknown environment that we were facing in the rest of the year. So many of you who are still with us have increasing commitments, other commitments, and difficulties based on either your professional requirements, your family requirements, or a combination, and also additional requirements based on your service to the community during this time. So I wanted to put that by you. I'd like to get through the agenda for tonight. I'd like you to think about some of that as we go through. It may be even if I have a proposal from one of you to take a vote for this, without a better action word on that, of the best way ahead to continue trying to finish up these items that we've started and submit a very shortened, a very abridged report with additional recommendations for further evaluation in the years and subsequent years, or to call it a day, as we are now. So there's two options that we have here, and so I'd like you all to kind of think about that. I wish we'd had that conversation before John had submitted his resignation. I thought that would probably been a bit probably appropriate, but he chose to take the path that he did at that time. So I'm not going to take any comments at this time about this. I just wanted to let you know about that and to kind of let that sink in a little bit as we go through our work today. I do think we've got a lot here that is going to be worthwhile to our government, even if we just finish the first two focus areas that we've approved. There's a lot out there that I think we might be able to finish as well, but that depends a lot on the, as I say, the continuing commitment of the members that are doing that work. So again, I appreciate everybody for being here tonight and putting in your valuable time into this project. And I'd like to continue on then in the agenda for item 2, which is public comment. And I asked Stephanie if we have received any public comment for this agenda.
No comments.
Okay, no comments submitted from the public. The third item is approval of minutes from the general meeting, our last general meeting, which was July 23rd. Stephanie sent them out, the minutes for you to review. Can I get a motion to approve the minutes from the last meeting?
I'll motion that we approve the minutes from the last meeting.
Okay, we have a motion from Tim. Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, and we have a second from Richard. All opposed? Say by consent, then the minutes from the last meeting are approved. The next item on our...
Excuse me, I'm sorry. I just put this in the chat, but I was a little slow. This is Gail. I'm abstaining from that.
I don't have my chat up. I'm sorry. Okay, very good. Thank you. Thank you, Gail. Okay, the next item is our focus area reports. So since our last meeting, there's been quite a bit of progress on both of these approved focus area reports, both of them. A great deal of work from those who have worked on it. I'd like to turn over first for the approved focus area for the OC Commission Formation and Charter. And I think we're very close to being able to finish at least anything that requires input from the OC to get that further along in its writing phase. So I'm going to turn it over to Gail now, who is prepared to be able to go through those two particular items and the entire document.
Thank you. So I'm going to share my screen so that we can see what we're working with. I said some of this in the just introduction to what we're seeing here. The document from the work group has been revised based on the discussion at the meeting that was 1 month ago, the first meeting in July. At that meeting, we adopted a number of I think it was 5 specifically, of the items that the work group had brought forward. And so that's now reflected in the document. And I didn't anticipate reviewing those tonight. There are 6 remaining items to review and act on tonight. For 2 of those, there are differences of opinion on the work group of which I'm aware, and I think pretty firm differences of opinion. There may be others, but for those 2, wanted to note that. And what I've talked with Beth about doing, and she and I worked on this together as an approach here, was for me to review the full remaining 6 items, then go back and vote on the 2 for which there are differences of opinion on the work group as separate items, and then see if we can take a vote on the full remaining package instead of going item by item as we did last time. So that's what I will proceed with, unless I hear otherwise from someone. So let me just review all 6 of the items. The first one that's showing here on your screen is one that we talked about at that early July meeting, there was one specific change that was adopted, which was to revise the specified paragraph of the charter to clarify that the Overview Commission's scope is not limited to just the original objectives for unification. And so that was adopted. You can see the underlined language that we added was to look at the extent to which the unified government has achieved its original and current objectives in an effective and responsible manner. So that was voted on the last time. Changes reflected the additional information shown here, some of which we were asked to clarify at that early July meeting. So what you see in front of you for each paragraph in which there is a proposed change to the charter charge to the Overview Commission, there's a statement that specifies why it's being done. So there's a proposal for, in the first paragraph, to specify the objectives in more detail, as opposed to just saying goals and objectives of the unified government, but say where those goals and objectives are located, what to look at. The second one is to provide criteria for evaluation of service delivery. And that's the paragraph where the OC is charged with looking at the extent to which the unified government has achieved its original and current objectives in an effective and responsible manner. And the language that we were suggesting as an example of the, or as a starting point for decisions about specifying the criteria for evaluation of service delivery by the mayor and commission when they consider this, you see the language here in red. So including equity in geographic availability, access, delivery, and cost of services. The third paragraph was a revision to clarify that the OC is to look at the fiscal year in which it is convened. And then there's also some language to clarify that the scope is essentially the full unified government departments, agencies, and programs. And then the fourth one is to revise the charter to ask the OC to consider greater efficiency and ending of programs, which is this text right here, as well as the addition of activities. The current charter language simply says, look at whether additional programs are needed. And we felt that there may be existing programs that are no longer needed or can be combined for further efficiency, as well as a need for additional programs. So that's the package of recommendations for the charter language that is currently in place to charge the OC. It's item number one. Go to item number two. And if anyone has clarifying questions, please let me know. And, please interrupt or ask somebody else to interrupt if you see something in the chat. I'd definitely want to answer clarifying questions. The second item is also a recommendation for language to be added to the section of the charter that lays out the OC's charge. This is one of the two items on which there is a difference of opinion among the work group members. The rationale for this addition is shown here. This is one we were asked to clarify at the last meeting as well. The rationale is that there is not a routine mechanism for citizen input to the unified government's audit function. And revising the charge to the OC provides an opportunity to create a routine mechanism for that input. And so the suggested language is here, that a fifth item for the charge to the OC be added, recommending priorities for audits of unified government departments to be completed by the Office of Operational Analysis before convocation of the next Overview Commission. Any clarifying questions on that one? We did have considerable discussion of this at that early July meeting, which people may recall. All right, third item. This is an area where we kind of collapsed and cleaned up the language a little bit. There are 4 offices and officers for which we think there should be explicit statements about support and assistance to the OC. Right now, there's nothing specified in the charter or the code, or very indirect and limited language is more accurate in the charter about OC support, and we recommend that for the 4 officers listed here, that either the charter or the code section be amended, the 4 officers being manager, attorney, internal auditor, and the Office of Operational Analysis, and then the 4th one is the Office of Public Information. So the recommendation is that either the charter or the code in the appropriate section be amended to specify specific responsibilities for assisting the OC. And then we went ahead to list those, and then also say that in addition, for each officer and office, specify that the office or officer may provide guidance to the Overview Commission, but the Overview Commission shall determine its procedures and recommendations independently. So for the manager, we recommend that it specifies assisting the OC, including provision of access to unified government employees for the purpose of information gathering. For the attorney, the specific recommendation is including provision of legal guidance as required. For the internal officer and the Office of Operational Analysis, we definitely had more details based on the working relationship we've had with Stephanie and her relationship. Stephanie and her office, and including some of what wasn't accomplished for us when we started. Saw this as a place to write some of that in. So there's a long list here. Coordinate intake and orientation for the overview member commissions, provide logistical support for meetings, and also provide internal surveys of the unified government, facilitation of any outside contracts, and access to previous audits and related information for overview commission work. The internal auditor is specified as the primary liaison between the unified government and the overview commission, and with the office responsible for coordinating for intake and coordination. And for the Office of Public Information, the specifics that are laid out include coordinating community outreach by the Overview Commission, including a public notice, advertising for citizen participation and feedback, coordination of social media and other communication, and provision of logistical support for citizen input meetings and surveys to the extent an Overview Commission wants to undertake those. Any clarifying questions on this material? Item, recognizing basically what I just covered, that there's now should these charter changes or code changes be adopted, that the responsibilities of the auditor and the Office of Operational Analysis would be increased. We have a recommendation that the mayor and commission ensure adequate staffing for the Office of Operational Analysis so that it can meet its responsibilities. I think as clear in that we've moved now beyond charter or code changes, and these are operational changes. Recommendations for operational changes to better support the OC and ensure success in its work. In that, with that in mind, the 5th recommendation recognizes the limitations we had in our initial orientation and the amount of time that went into setting up basic meeting arrangements and procedural steps, and also a recognition that not having that orientation, not having a time to get to know what we're doing and get to know each other, contributed to challenges in inclusion of members and in clear and honest group communication. So we have a series of paragraphs here that are intended to address the suite of challenges that we've discussed at several meetings over the course of our time together. First, and these are requests to the unified government, and so the specific entity to do it's going to vary depending on the action, but these would be actions to be taken by the unified government. First one is for guidelines on requirements for the OC to the grand jury members to help that grand jury selection process be more oriented so that the people who go through it are more oriented. Ensure that requests for the OC applications are widely publicized, and that the grand jury responsibilities are completed basically before the last day of their term. So the goal again is to give the OC members better information on their responsibilities at the outset and allow members to prepare themselves before the OC convenes. We also have a recommendation for an orientation package that would be distributed in October, and then afterwards as needed for members who come on after October. That package includes specific details, specific materials, and these have been drawn from our conversation at meetings as well as work group input. And then the specification that the auditor, the designated liaison to the OC, in our recommendation, it would be the auditor, would be responsible for the task. The third item here is a funding request. And this is the second item on which I'm aware of a difference of opinion among the work group. The request as it's currently written is to set aside an amount equivalent to 0.5 to 1% either of the manager's office budget or of the internal support fund in the that was present in the fiscal year prior to creation of the Overview Commission. These funds are intended for to support the OC in completion of its work, including public engagement and input. And so this is one item that I'd like to vote on separately, and I think that there's some discussion that I'm interested in seeing about this before it goes forward, and potentially others as well. So fourth item under this suite of recommendations to the unified government for specific support to the Overview Commission is to arrange for services from an independent entity like the Carl Vinson Institute of Government, and that those services would be specifically for two purposes. One is training for the OC, basically on how to operate as citizen auditors, how to collect credible information and draw credible conclusions on the factors in the charter that are specified for the OC to look at. And the idea would be that this training would happen shortly after the initial meeting and would help provide a solid base for the OC work. In addition, facilitation of a limited number of OC sessions early in the organization's tenure. And this is recommended to help build an atmosphere that encourages contributions from all members and supports effective decision making. So lay a solid groundwork at the beginning so that the OC can move forward. Fifth item here is to undertake a survey to basically to help the members get to know each other's interests and skills. And there's been a suggestion that some of our members would be interested in drafting that survey. I think it'd be pretty simple and straightforward, but it would be a tool for the unified government to use to apply to support the OC by helping them get to know each other. And then the sixth item is an informational packet. It's really a logistics packet that would be prepared and distributed at the initial meeting of the OC. Name tags, parking passes, meeting location, etc. So those kinds of logistics. Any clarifying questions on that package of recommendations to the unified government? All right. Last item then is some basic procedural recommendations for the OC itself. That these could be taken or left, but they are intended to help provide a starting point for the next OC. So a quorum, as a recommendation to establish a quorum for the full OC and for any committees, and then a statement about what we have used for quorum. As a recommendation to recognize the auditor as an ex officio non-voting member of the OC, and recognize officers of the OC as ex officio non-voting members of any committee established by the OC. So that's the package. I'm going to pause again for any clarifying questions. As I said, what I'd like to do now, unless we need to take a different path, is to go ahead and go back to the two items for which there are differences of opinion in the work group, and discuss those and then vote on those. So let me go back to the first one, which is this item here. Again, this is the recommendation to add language to the charter's charge to the Overview Commission that asks the Overview Commission to recommend priorities for audits of specific departments that would be completed before convocation of the next Overview Commission. Since I know there's some differences of opinion among the work group members, let me start by first asking if there's a work group member who wants to speak for or against adoption of this recommendation as written.
Gail, I'll make a comment if I may.
Yes, please.
I'm not strongly against this recommendation, but I believe it is unnecessary. I believe that it represents a little bit of an overreach in us being telling future committees specifically what they need to look into and what they need to include in their report. And I just think it would be preferential to allow the overview commissions that meet 10 years from now and 20 years from now to make their own determination about the items that need to be included in their reports.
Anybody else? Thank you, Richard. Anybody else on the work group want to add?
This is Joe.
Go ahead, Joe.
Yeah, I was wondering, I mean, the way that the issue is set up is just a mechanism for citizen input for audits. And this seems like a good way to do it without, there is nothing currently. I'm wondering if this is not a good place to do that.
Thank you, Joe. I'm not sure, was that Roy who was starting to speak as well?
No, that was me.
Oh, sorry, Timothy.
It's all right. I just wanted to shed my perspective on it, shed a little light. From the way I look at it, this is sort of I think it's on the opposite side of Richard in that I do not strongly feel for this, but I am on the side for it. I think that it is not as much, I think back to the beginning when we felt completely out in the open. I respect where Richard feels that it sort of tells the future commissions what to do. But frankly, I think we might have liked to have been told a little more what to do. I don't see anything wrong with that. And again, from my perspective, we are not, what we write here may or may not even get in. It just gives the mayor and council an opportunity to consider what we have considered. So I don't necessarily, I think, have the weight in what the outcome of this might otherwise be there. Yes, Brandy, you have a question.
Okay, so if the recommendation is for audits to be completed before the next overview commission convenes, then is it really a suggestion for them? Because the way it sounds, it's a suggestion for unified government to have certain things done prior to the next overview commission coming in, so that information is prepared for them in advance.
Yeah.
I mean,
Sorry,
it's not like telling the next overview commission, hey, you need to look at the water department. It's saying, to the unified government, hey, you might want to make sure these big departments, have had a recent audit sometime in the next 10 years so that the next overview commission can look at it.
So it's actually, it is, part of the problem here is context, and is the sentence that precedes it is, it's in the context of what two thoughts collided. It's in the context, the sections of the charter that says what the overview commission shall do, or what it's constituted to do. And the specific sentence that precedes it is, in reviewing the unified government, the following factors shall be considered by the overview commission. And so this would be the fifth factor to consider by the overview commission. So it is actually a recommendation to the overview commission, not a specification of specific departments, not a recommendation to the unified government.
And it could be also utilized as a way of, hey, we looked at this and you guys might want to follow up on it.
Yes, exactly.
It's not telling them, I guess it kind of feels like we're thinking about it as we're telling them, you know, I don't know. It just,
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Sure.
Are y'all trying to supplant the authority that the audit committee has, who decides what audits need to be done? Because I don't really think that's the role of this group at all.
That's absolutely not the intent, Stephanie. And if you think about how the Overview Commission works under the charter, it makes recommendations to the mayor and commission, of which the audit committee is part of it. So it is simply a mechanism for citizen input to that process.
I would go with Richard on it. I think it's overreach if you want my vote, but this is y'all's committee.
Well, I mean, this is going to be put for a vote to the full commission right now, hopefully. I mean, if anyone feels strongly enough about it to make a motion to carry it forward, it will be, and someone seconds that, it will be put to a vote. Are there other comments from other folks or questions or comments?
This is Joe. I'd just like to respond to the overreach comment. I think because it is just a recommendation, it's the citizens' way to tell the audit committee or even anybody else, this is something we think should be looked at. And that's as concrete and as binding as it is. But if this report is taken seriously by anyone and it's a public official report that people can read, okay, this is what the citizens thought should be done. Like if we saw something like the animal services thing coming forward, we said, hey, you really ought to look at this, then they'd maybe pay more attention to it. And again, it's not binding, and I think we don't need to go into details about saying it's not binding, but it's just a recommendation.
Yeah, I mean, the context is clearly shall be considered. Anybody else want to add thoughts here?
So yes, I do have a comment on this. So I like the idea of citizen input for audits. The question is whether or not this is the right way to do it. I actually think that the rewording this might make it make more sense in just, instead of saying recommendation of priorities, it should say something to the degree the Overview Commission at the end of their service may provide a recommendation for specific audits based on some of the things that they might have seen in their work. So for example, if we see things in our work that doesn't necessarily, that we don't have the ability or the capacity to go down deeper or farther, but that may provide a certain concern for the government in terms of future risks, if there are things that we've been exposed to or that we see that may not rise to the level of, providing deeper analysis from our perspective. But what I'm saying is that the recommendation if the OC provide a recommendation and not make it, just take that whole piece off and to be completed by the Office of Operational Analysis before the next over. Just take that whole piece off, because that makes it sound like it's being imposed, right? So if we're just making a recommendation, we're saying we're making the recommendation, but you better do it before the next Overview Commission, right? So if you take that piece off and say, the OC Commission may provide a recommendation of audits based on evaluations that they've seen in their work. That's a recommendation of audits in particular, and that recommendation would go right to the audit committee. That would go right to the mayor and commission based on the report that the Overview Commission's giving. Does that make sense?
It does to me, yeah.
Can we get any input from our resident auditor, maybe, to see how it would fit in with
one more piece of that, though?
Says?
One more piece of that, audits, the unified government to be completed by the Office of Operational Analysis. It doesn't have to be completed by the Office of Operational Analysis. The Office of Operational Analysis has the ability to do internal audits, has the ability to do all different kinds of audits, but it also has the ability to contract out audits. It has the ability to recommend external agencies to come in and do audits. So I don't think the audits have to be completed by the Office of Operational Analysis, right? They should control the audit plan, so to speak, which would include input from the OC, right? For the next 10 years, your 5-year audit plan will include input from X, Y, and Z, one of which would be if the OC made specific recommendations, that would include in their audit plan. So, for example, leisure services or the police force, right? So we're going to do an operational analysis or performance analysis or even a financial analysis of, say, the sheriff's office. they might hire somebody to do that, right? If that was something that we recommended, that for example, the sheriff's office needs a financial audit. I would say that the Office of Operational Analysis would either support or not support that, or support that in either internal capacity or providing external capacity to complete that requirement.
Okay, so I tried to capture those thoughts here, and I think it'd be good to hear from Stephanie Maddox. If you have anything to add, Stephanie, go ahead.
I apologize, you guys. Let's see. I think I shared this a couple of meetings ago that the audit committee is also motivated and trying to figure out how our office can accomplish more audits. And I want to invite you all to listen in on our audit committee meeting that we have scheduled next Wednesday, where they will also discuss the future work plan and how that looks. Our risk assessment results are back, and that will be presented. But the overarching takeaway, I think, from this discussion tonight is that I do feel what you have to suggest would be received as a valuable comment or suggestion by the committee members. If anything, is just validation that what they're trying to achieve is supported by members of the residents in the community.
Great, thank you. Well, I think unless somebody else has a kind of compelling need to add something, I was going to go ahead and ask if anyone wants to make a motion. So just anybody have a compelling need to add something? Okay.
Dale, I'd like to move the adoption of Beth's alternative.
For a second?
I'll second.
Yeah, so Timothy, I believe, was the second. Is that correct?
Yes.
Beth, do you want to run the vote? Because I might mess it up.
I just had a question on the wording on it. The OC at the end of their service. I'm just thinking maybe the OC may consider providing a recommendation or something like that. I don't know if we need to include end of the service, because that would just be part of the report like everything else.
I agree. In that wording, you could probably take the OC may provide a recommendation. So you can take at the end of their service, this not necessary.
Is that okay with the people who made the motion and seconded it?
Sure.
Okay. Beth, do you want to run the vote? Do you want me to do it?
No, I'm just looking carefully at the wording again, because I think you may, as you think through that, to get it actually exactly worded the way you want it to be, since you're making a charter, recommendations for wording to be very careful how you. And I had to say with a caveat that that we get the concept there with that alternative, but I think minor changes in the wording reads correct. We know what we're talking about, but you got to take it sometimes out of context to make sure it's actually worded correctly to say what you want it to say.
Yeah, I think I like the idea of reserving the right to change some things before we do a final vote, I guess, because I don't even think the OC needs to be included, because I don't think it's in the other lines, that kind of thing.
I think it depends on how it gets written, Joe. I mean, I think the important thing is to say we are recommending to the mayor and commission that they make a charter change to specify that the OC may provide a recommendation of priorities for audits of unified government departments. I mean, I'm fine with the caveat there. I just want to be clear that we don't have to write the specific charter language.
Right.
I liked the phrase at the end of their service, which was included but then deleted. Would somebody think about that deletion?
Well, I think it may provide a recommendation as part of their report, so as part of their final report. That's how we make our recommendations. So I don't know if it's necessary to say it, but if it's unclear not being there, we don't want to make recommendations audits while we're in the middle of the work, while we're in the middle of the
yeah, it's like everything else, it's just going to be all lumped into the final report.
So we can say the OC report may provide a recommendation for priorities if that makes it better for you.
It does for me.
All right, and then I would suggest we go ahead and vote because we may need to, we can make minor wording changes going forward as part of what's on the table.
I'm a little unclear what we're voting on. Are we voting to have this recommendation at all, or voting on the rewording of the recommendation?
We are voting on adopting the motion was to adopt the language that is shown. I'm sorry, let me do it specifically. To adopt this language in our recommendations. So some folks are voting in the chat. Maybe should we do that? Beth, how do you want to handle the vote?
So we can do a by name vote on this, since it's very specific. So let's see if I'm on. Okay. So yes, we'll go one by one. So yay or nay. So Gail.
Yes.
Brandy.
Yes.
Ellen.
Abstain.
Hunay.
Yes.
I muted Joe.
Joe, yes.
Okay. Paul.
Yes.
Richard. I didn't hear Richard still.
Yes.
Okay. Roy. Roy, are you with us? You have to unmute.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
I abstain.
Thank you. Stephanie?
No.
Okay, and Timothy?
Yes.
Okay, and the chair votes yes?
Who motioned and who seconded? I lost that.
Okay, so
Richard motioned and Timothy seconded.
Okay, thanks.
You're welcome. All right, let me jump down then to the other item for which there is some disagreement on the work group. Sorry, it's this third paragraph right here. Again, to remind y'all of the context, this is in the package that is being recommended to the unified government to provide support to the Overview Commission, and this specific recommendation recommends funding at the level of 0.5 to 1% of the manager's office budget or the internal support fund at the levels that they were set in the prior fiscal year. And specifies what the funds would be used for, completion of the OC work, including public engagement and input. So again, anybody from the work group want to chime in on this, either pro or con?
I'd like to suggest that maybe we revise the statement, I guess, to just say set aside some amount of funding in the fiscal year prior to that, and the rest of the statement, and then maybe an additional sentence at the end saying some suggested amounts would be equivalent to 0.5%, 1% of the manager's office budget or the internal support fund. Just so we're saying, hey, we'd like to have this part put in there, and we've kind of looked at it and suggested these items, but just to show that we're not really fixed on those numbers.
I tend to agree with Joe on this one. Just tying them to that amount, even though I know Gail has done work on it to know what that amount is, how she came up with it, and what it would entail. It is an overreach only because I just don't think can put them in that spot to be looking at it. Although, even though the wording is, we are just asking them to consider it. And the world is going to be different 10 years from now. So I'm not sure that 0.5 or 1% means much to them. How much money will they have available for things like that? Just my thought.
Yeah, I agree with you, Hunaid. And actually, I was going to suggest, I mean, I agree with both Joe and Hunaid. I think removing that specific from the first sentence is a great idea. And I actually, the 0.5 to 1% of those two specific line items came from Joe. And I didn't have a chance to actually look at the numbers until tonight. And I'm not sure that, that depending on if I'm interpreting the line items correctly, I think that those may equal funding levels higher than I would be comfortable recommending.
I thought when I looked at it, it came to about 10 to 20,000. I think the mayor had also said hey, we can do about that amount, the 10,000 amount. So that kind of fit what I was looking at in the budget.
Well, when I looked at the budget tonight, for one, depending on how I interpret those words, one item was way out of line and the other was about 37,000. And so it may be that we want to say in the $15,000 range, equivalent to this year's dollars or something like that.
But that's going to change as the years go on.
Well, that's why you specify equivalent to $2020. Is that what you're talking about, just changing the value of the dollar, or are you talking about something different?
Just making it a percentage amount of some budget. Like I said, I'm going to try to pull up the budgets and find out what numbers that I was seeing. But like I said, it came to about 10 or 20,000 was what I was looking at from the budget I was looking at. I could have read that wrong as well.
Any reactions from other folks on this?
What if the wording just said to set aside a percentage and didn't specify the percentage number? So that could be looked at the time and decided upon what was a correct amount based on the current funding.
We did outline earlier in the document very specific support requirements for the OC. And we don't know, as we went through this process too, right? So it was a learning process to find out what it cost to do some of the things we thought would be necessary. It was a surprise to us in some of the quotes that we got. So if we want them to resource the OC, maybe the wording should be that we resource it at an appropriate level to provide the support that the OC needs to properly execute its duties. So that can reference back to the original requirements to have training sessions, to provide documents, to have the public input sessions. Those things all cost money. So if we not identify an amount, because that may change based on how a resource that the OC is going to be at any particular decade that they're doing this.
I'm okay with that. I would like to include a specification of public engagement and input, though, because that's actually where costs can come in.
And it is important that they put it in the budget the year before, so that when they're doing the budget development, it's very easy to miss this if you've got an every 10-year requirement, any kind of significant requirement, to identify that and put it in the budget so it's there and the OC is convened.
I have a question for someone. Who reminds the mayor and commission and the manager that we have a overview commission coming up a year from now and this stuff needs to be budgeted? Does anyone know?
Well, it's their responsibility to understand their charter requirements. So the charter requirements specify that.
So we are assuming that they read the charter every time a new budget has to be put together.
Well, I think, yeah, I mean, I'm not making any assumption about how it happens. I'm simply saying it is their responsibility to understand the charter requirements.
Okay.
But we also know that they forgot about us this year.
They
It was
did.
like, oh, yeah, it's time for that. I mean, some people remembered, but kind of like the majority, we were kind of an afterthought.
Yeah, that could have been in the grand jury process.
Yeah.
And support those actually guiding the grand jury process, we don't really know. But yeah, to me, that's why connecting more things to the charter and the function of the unified government itself and specific offices makes sense.
Yeah, they kind of forgot, but there was nothing really to forget. I mean, where is it written that they should fund us? It's just kind of an unfunded mandate.
Well, they do have discretionary funds, both the manager's office and the mayor's office. So I don't know whether this would apply or whether they would have the money or not, but they do always have funds for emergency.
Yeah, but I don't think we want to be taken out of the emergency funds every
Yeah.
time.
Yeah. So the changes I've made here reflect this conversation so far. So set aside funding at an appropriate level to accomplish the OC tasks. I should say to support the OC in accomplishing its tasks, including public engagement and input. In the fiscal year, sorry, I'm not doing this well. In accomplishing its tasks, including public engagement and input, and those funds should be set aside in the fiscal year prior to the creation of the OC.
So the question is here, who in here? So if it's just in general, the government, the DA's office, the grand jury, the manager's office, the mayor's office, maybe even it should be in the 10-year cyclic budget of the Office of Operational Analysis. If there's a cyclic thing, there should be a line item maybe in the Office of Operational Analysis that's left blank every year. There's not an OC and filled the year prior to the convocation of the commission. That seems to, if you've got a placeholder there in the budget, that will be that's the appropriate place. I don't know if it should be the mayor's funds.
Right, just kind of, I guess your election budget should be bigger during election years than not. So
Right,
there's something to plan into the budget.
Right, and when you do the census, the census is every 10 years. Those are cyclic, 10-year cyclic spending requirements. But if you put a placeholder there, then as people turn over and positions turn over and things change, that in order for that placeholder to be removed, it has to be an active item.
I mean, I'd like to see the percentage in there, but even if it's included in a narrative somehow of explaining how we came up with it, that's fine with me, as long as we give a starting point, and they can obviously do what they want with it.
Yeah, I think, Joe, that would be a good thing to put in the narrative. One of our working documents has a table of items for the narrative that go with this, and so if you can confirm the amounts that you were looking at, we can put that in the narrative as part of our work after this evening.
Yeah, scanning through right now, I haven't found the internal support fund stuff, but the manager's office looks like their budget is 2.2 million.
Yeah, and so
which comes out to 10 to 20, right?
And you can include in the narrative as well our findings on the kind of work that we thought we needed to do. We actually had the work analyzed and quoted what that came to, so that you can bracket kind of what projections can be for these particular items that we think are important to the OC to do an adequate job.
Yeah, Gail, do you have a feeling for what that would be based on the research and quotes that you got?
Yeah, I mean, I actually think for a more robust public involvement effort, I would recommend that it be in the 20 to 30,000 range, or 50 to 25,000 or something like that, as opposed to 10 to 15.
Excuse me, this is Roy. Prior to the creation of the next overview commission, are you specifying, I've heard conversation about 10 years during the conversation this evening on this subject. Does that mean it could be 5 years, 10 years, or maybe more than 10 years? Do we need to have a timeline in there as well?
Yes, and that is actually one of the things we adopted at the early July meeting, Roy, when we talked about this before, is the language that was adopted by a large majority vote was that the cycle of the overview commission be at some frequency determined by the mayor and commission less than 10 years. It could not be 10 years, more than 10 years, but it could be less depending on their judgment at the time.
Yeah, the cycle all
I
seems to
thought that
fit
was
where
the case. I was gonna say, I thought that was the case, but I didn't know if it needed to be in here or not.
It will be, it is in the full document. So it's a page that I actually skipped over because it was things we'd already adopted. So it does show in that page.
Thank you.
I don't think we necessarily need to have it in this piece right here, but in the general procedure of convening the OC, I think it's going to have to be it's not a last minute thing, so it would have to be in the, presented and approved in the budget by the end of June so that everything can start the next July.
So does anybody who hasn't spoken yet want to put in a thought here on the language that is highlighted here on the screen?
This is Tim. I'm a little bit concerned about the use of terms such as appropriate level. It kind of goes back to what we've been discussing in the focus area about vague language and whether or not, that leaves a lot up for interpretation. But unfortunately, I haven't been able to find a sufficient solution to this per se. This specific one, I would like to say if we could give some, I like the idea of having maybe a draft receipt of how much the Carl Vinson Institute recommended for the costs. But again, also with time, you see an inflation. If we say it'll cost $30,000 and 10 years from now that doesn't cover it, I don't want to lock us into a certain perspective. That's why I've been okay with the 0.5 to 1% because that would obviously change with time. But I'm happy to work with it if that's the best we've got.
Yeah, my suggestion would be, because of these uncertainties, is that this information go in the narrative in support of this recommendation. Those specifics go in the narrative in support of the recommendation. Folks may not want to support that, I understand that, but that's my suggestion. Anybody else comments on this highlighted language? If there are no other comments, then is there someone, can I get a motion to adopt this language?
I'll motion to adopt.
There a second? Okay, Brandy seconded, thank you. Beth, you want to do a voice vote on this one as well?
Okay, let's start at the top then. So Ms. Gale,
Yes.
Brandy,
Yes.
Ellen,
Abstain.
Dave, we didn't hear you. Do you have any? Renee?
Sorry about that. Yes.
Okay, very good. Joe,
Yes.
Paul,
Yes.
Richard,
Yes.
Roy,
Yes.
Stephanie,
No.
Timothy,
Abstain.
okay, and the chair says yes.
Can a person that motioned abstain from the vote?
Who abstained?
Tim, but motion.
I've never seen anything that says otherwise.
Okay, just checking. That just seems odd. Okay. Fine with me.
And sometimes it's worth getting something on the table to understand how people feel about it, even if you don't personally support it. But I haven't seen it. That doesn't mean it doesn't exist. Okay, so we've got the information here then that we'll carry forward into the narrative as well. What I'd like to do then, do now, is see if we can proceed with adopting the remainder of the items. So the rest of this package, we've already revised and adopted 2 elements. So I want to open that up. Richard, go ahead.
I'd like to go ahead and move the adoption of the remaining items as presented.
For a second. I want to pause for discussion here because I just walked through them without discussion. So let me see if there's any discussion needed.
I think I had some questions on some of the wordings. We can just slide back through and look at it real quick. I think one of them was the
You want me to go down, Joe?
I think it's the number 2 on that first factor there.
Oh, up
The
here?
first item.
Sorry. Right here. Yes.
Yeah, we said including equity and geography availability, like maybe including but not limited to.
Yeah, that's
So I don't
oftentimes
sure where that list came
implied.
from.
I'm making that change, assuming if the folks who motioned or seconded, if you have a concern about that change, please say so. Otherwise, to me, that's implied, but we can certainly make it explicit.
Good.
Thank you. Any other discussion?
I think there was one other. Let me find it here.
While Joe's looking, does anybody else have anything they want to add? Okay, thanks. It's to you, Joe.
Yeah, I don't know. I think it may have been in the very last piece, just that real generic. We'll provide recommendations for those others, but that could be something maybe we just add. This list may be added to or changed later, based on what as we go through the process.
Yeah, well, absolutely. I mean, I think, yeah.
Okay, very good.
Go ahead. I think we're ready for a vote.
So we'll have one more line of note vote to identify now for the adoption of these recommendations from the focus group, and allow them to continue on with the narrative write-up for this section for the report, which I do believe it's already actually been started, but we'll go ahead and start. Jill? You do have so we do have the motion on the table, right?
Yeah, the motion
seconded.
has been made and seconded to adopt the remaining items as presented, with the one modification of but including but not limited to, as requested by Joe.
Right. Okay. Gail?
Yes.
I didn't hear you. Was that me?
Ellen?
Abstain.
Renee? Renee? Yes. Joe?
Yes.
Paul?
Yes.
Richard, Roy,
Yes.
Stephanie,
Yes.
Timothy.
Yes.
Okay, and the chair votes yes, so it's adopted with one abstention.
Thank you all, and I really want to thank the work group members for the time they put on this. And Beth mentioned the report from this work group. We've made really good progress on that report, largely thanks to Timothy. And so we will move this forward to be part of our final product, and that we'll have that done fairly quickly. So thank you.
Thank you, Gail. I know that was hard work to get through each and every one of that, and I appreciate everybody's input and great thought. And I'm happy that we've got one section very close to being done. And thank you all for your hard work. The next item is A2. I had a request. Before we move to the potential focus areas, is that before the next item or after the review of the OC Commission report? Okay, so before we go to 4B, I do think one of the members has a motion request. So we'll move to the focus area review of the 2010 OC Commission report. And that also has made a good deal of progress thanks to Timothy. So I'll pass it on to him and the work of his group.
But mostly due to my compatriot in the pits here. You know, I would not have been able to get anywhere without Ellen. She's done 90% of this. We're currently, and let me see if I can share kind of what we're currently looking at. Yeah, so currently we are we've got this written up. This is the narrative. Still some work to do on it. My comments for some reason have done a disappearing act, so she's been unable to really go into them. But you can see kind of what I'm showing here. We've got broken down with some summaries and some points. So hopefully once we've finished tinkering with it, we'll be able to release this for you guys to give some more feedback. I've already shown it to the chair. For the narrative, 62 all with the other content. So we're making good progress, and it's shaping up to pretty soon be pretty well wrapped up.
So it was indeed a challenge for me to get through that with my limited internet up there, but I did get to see a good deal of it, and I was impressed when I was able to scroll down. That was a total of 67 pages, right? The work. Mm-hmm. So in and of itself, a good document as a standalone document for our work. So it was really quite impressive, Ellen. And so I thank you all for that work. It did keep me busy. And I know you have some more work on it. So when we get a chance, then we can probably issue it sometime before the next meeting. We may be able to share it. And then the members will get a chance to look at that, and we can approve your work or make any additional recommendations if we need to on what you've done. But I think it's as a standalone document, it's very solid.
Thank you. Yeah, and if anyone else has any questions or comments, please speak up. Otherwise, I'm happy to relieve the floor.
Okay, thank you. So I have a request for a motion from Ellen before we moved on to the next item.
Yeah, I want to move that we go ahead and prepare and present the work of the 2 focus groups that we have already approved, identified. I didn't really realize until this week that the other focus groups had not been formally approved. So I would like to move that we complete the work of the 2 groups that have been approved, submit those whenever it seems appropriate, and to disband the Overview Commission.
Okay, so do we have a second on that motion?
I'll second that. This is Stephanie.
Okay, we have a second on that motion. That's a great challenge that we have right now to make this decision. This was something I thought we'd move to the end of the meeting.
Yeah, but I wanted to do it. I wanted to do it before we start talking about the other focus areas that haven't even been approved. And so I just figured it was better to see where people stand now before we go through that extremely lengthy process. I didn't even know. I mean, I just today filled out a spreadsheet that I didn't even know existed that was necessary to bring forward to even get our focus area approved. So I just, and I know that if I leave this commission, you won't have a quorum. Right?
Yeah.
So I'm sorry, but I really have reached my limit.
Okay,
Ellen, can
so
you go ahead and read that, state that motion again?
Okay, I move that we complete the 2 focus areas that have already been approved by this commission, prepare those as a report to give to the mayor and commission, and the commission here on.
So we have a second by Stephanie. So I open the floor for discussion. We can start. Who would like to start?
I've got a clarification, I guess, and it goes back to the beginning of the meeting today. You said that, without a certain number of members, we don't have a quorum. Is 50% plus? Is that based on the initial 21 spots available, or is it on people that are actively still on the commission itself?
That's the way I see it from the original numbers. So I just
You could decide that it's based on how many we have left, but that's also, up to you to decide. And if that's the case, then that's fine, and I will not feel like I'm leaving you without a quorum.
I believe Gail had a comment. She left something in the chat.
Thank you. Yeah, and I see that Paul has also said, can we not change the quorum level? So yeah, definitely. I appreciate that there is a range of work or accomplishments that have been done by the proposed focus area, on the proposed focus areas. I feel like for the emergency management area, Richard has really done yeoman's work and is moving us forward rather quickly. And so I want to put in there that I think it appears to me that there's some valuable information there that we could carry forward. It does obviously go beyond what Ellen has proposed. But as I said, I respect that work and I hate to see it just go by the wayside.
And I'm not saying that you can't go ahead and move forward. And actually, if you deal with the quorum issue, then that's fine, because you won't, you can go ahead and keep working on the other focus areas.
Well, I thought your motion was to specify that our report would be those 2 focus area results, and the OC would be disbanded.
Right. So just take a vote.
Move forward.
That's my motion. So just take a vote.
Yeah, well, we're doing discussion. I'm offering my perspective during the discussion.
Okay, next, do we have additional contributions to this discussion?
Yeah, I'd also like to say that the auditing committee that Hunae's been running, we've already got surveys out to the internal auditor, the manager, and the audit committee already back, and they're working on the report kind of thing. So there's already been a bunch of work on that as well, but it's not been officially, I guess, recognized as a focus area. And I think that would be a shame to go to waste.
If I can put some thought on.
We're losing you, Tim.
Oh, is that better? Good. Okay. Ellen, correct me if I'm wrong here, but what I'm hearing is she's trying to find a negotiable bridge the gap for her to be able to not to stay on for as much as she really can. And she's not trying to disrespect anyone's work on any of their sections, simply trying to to convey that she's trying to make it work for us, but she's recognizing, especially from how it was framed at the beginning, that if she leaves, it's put the rest of the group at risk, and she's not trying to do that. I think, Ellen, I have to say, I am on your behalf regretting more and more coming back, because then vote in that regard. So it's ironic that you coming back actually puts you in this position. That more than talking about just the work, I think it would also probably be beneficial to probably talk about how else everyone else is feeling about the process. You know, I'm hearing that Ellen's kind of drained, and I can say from being in both the groups that are currently official ones, I've been busy. I don't know if I'm in the same place though as Ellen, but that's for the most part, because I am very convinced if you guys decide for me how things are going than anything else.
I just want to make a comment observation. I have been very sensitive about how much Ellen has taken on. I have tried to express that every now and then. And that is a huge
This
part
is
of it.
not about me. This is not about me. I don't want to make it about me. That's not about me. I think that there are a lot of issues, a lot of problems. We've lost half our people. We don't have everybody doing the same. We're not on the same page. We don't have a coherent focus as a group. I just feel like we have not been able to ever get to the point where we trust each other. We are able to, get the work done without micromanaging. And I'm sorry, I'm really, really frustrated. And I feel like the process is just, for me, is just not working. I mean, we've spent so much time on one single area. And I think, I've been working on the audit focus group stuff. I'm the one that, filled out and edited and did, I'm not saying that it's not valuable work, what everybody's doing. I am merely feeling that there is not enough cohesive structure to move us forward. And I'm trying not to insert emotion, but it's not about me. I just don't see that we are making the kinds of decisions and progress that are needed in order to get this done in time. And I feel like there's so much, like the process is not working for me. And so I want to just make that motion. And I understand people have different ideas, but can we just focus on that? Like, are there enough people who, do all of you just say, no, we're not going to do that? Fine. Just say, no, we're gonna go on and go on. But
we do need to talk it out a little bit, whether we go on or not.
That's the thing, is that we talk everything to death.
I seconded this for the same reason, that I feel there is not a cohesive process. Things don't move forward. We spend so much time on minutia and debate when the work should be happening in subcommittees. You don't need our approval. You don't need our vote. Just say, here's what we're doing. And if anybody cared enough about it, they would have participated in the work that you've done. So my opinion shouldn't even matter about the two things I voted no on. But if you ask me, I'm just going to give you my opinion. I am kind of done with it. I don't have any more energy to dump into it. And trust me, I have dumped a ton of work into all of it. But I am not going to be a sunk cost fallacy person. I have sunk those costs. They are lost, but I don't want to sink anymore.
And I just feel like we're not dealing with, like, why have we lost half of the commission?
Yeah.
And I see a handful of people doing all the work, which usually happens anyway. But I just feel like the things that we have tried to bring to bear are taking so long. The process is just broken for me. So, Timothy and I worked on one focus area that I don't know how it got approved. I don't remember that. But he and I were able to get that done. I wrote the report, I set it up, I did it so it could be a template for the rest of you, for the rest of the focus areas. Go ahead and use it if you think it's a good template, but I just don't think that the work that we're doing is moving in a good direction. So
I actually, believe it or not, I totally feel you. Even that first area, just going through it, charter language, line by line, everything being challenged, it is exhausting to listen, even though I was not as involved as other people were. Absolutely. And I totally agree with Stephanie's point. They should take the subcommittee, let them come up with it, and just go out and present it, and up and down vote, and that's but I do believe in supporting the majority. It's part of the democratic system that's ingrained in all of us, I believe. So. But I hear you. I'm exhausted by that. Just going through well, I was not at all involved with the second one that you and Timothy worked on, but I'm just thinking 67 pages. I hope somebody reads it. You and I have known you for 20 years. We have worked with other commissions. I tell you, let's hope they give us some respect just by reading it, nothing else. I understand how you're feeling.
Without additional comment, I would like to just say I'm in favor of the motion, and I'll be voting in favor of the motion.
Would you restate the motion again, please?
I can read it the way that I've written it. Ellen moved to complete the 2 focus areas that have already been approved and present to the commission, and then disband the overview commission.
Thank you. I'm in favor of keeping the commission, and I'm sorry that you feel the way you do. I started, and I'm going to continue. So if that's the way it's going to happen, I think we can reset a forum and limp along and do the best we can, and that's my opinion. Thank you.
I have a question for the chair. I mean, what happens if we were to, let's say, lose a couple more people or one person? Can we just technically not continue?
So from my perspective, if we drop below 11 members, that we kind of lose our credibility in the sense that we haven't captured at least the size for approving and disapproving what we're sending forward. It is true, and certainly in lots of organizations like this, there are those that carry heavier weights in different parts. And when this commission started, my feeling was that the actual writing and the work and the analysis would come from different people, different aspects and different contributions. And as we begin to disassemble right from the beginning, based on completely disparate positions on what we should be doing and how we should be doing it. The very first 2 resignations were members that were, one completely opposite the other, and they were both extreme ideas in terms of what the commission should be doing and how it should be doing it. And so for completely opposite reasons, they resigned. And then one for individual reasons, people resigned. And I know, and I've talked to many of you about this already, how powerfully difficult this has been for all these reasons, right? So no structure, no framework upon which to be able to figure out how to build it, almost getting there and then being disassembled by circumstances outside our control, then trying to reassemble. Those wanting more process, those wanting less process, those that feel that certain items were more important than other items. So we had a very diverse group. We had very different positions, and we never had a time where we were able to capture that, but, you know, to make a common, you know, pull that wagon together in the same direction. And we weren't able to capture it in the ideas either, in terms of how to do it, the mechanics of how to do it. So what was appropriate and what was correct. So you're going back to your question. For me, the red line was kind of at 11. So, and you could reestablish a quorum, but for me to say not being able to leave it at the end, like, you know, at the end I said, well, maybe I'll just sit down and write it myself, right? Like, I know some of you have felt that way too. Just sit down and do it. It'll take me 2 weeks from start to finish, and you know, 40 hours each week, and I'll do it. So, but of course, that's not proper or correct either. So shepherding it through has been a great challenge for me and for everyone here, and trying to find the right way. So continuing to have commitment from members from volunteer commissions is probably the single greatest challenge of any board, any of you that have been on it, right? This one has met challenges so far that, you know, certainly has surprised me that we've even been this far. But Ellen, I don't disagree with you. So I am pulled in disparate conditions. So I feel exactly in the same way that Roy does. In one sense, we started it, we'll finish it. Whatever it takes to get to the end. If there's a last screaming rabbit pulling out of the hole, or being sensible and smart. Stephanie has recommended to me many times that, you know, back in May, the officers of the commission wanted to close shop. So I'm pulled in both directions, and that's probably why we have not, you probably don't feel that it's been carefully constructed enough to be confident and comfortable that we're going in the right direction, and that's on me. So I
don't know why you couldn't go ahead after we take this vote, see how it goes, and you can decide if you want to have a different level for a quorum. You can do that. I don't think you have to stick with the 21 members. As we know now, there were no set guidelines for this group that can't be, you know, managed. And in these unprecedented times, I don't think we can totally blame COVID on the attrition rate. I don't think that's the case, because we all thought we could do this when we all had, you know, regular jobs and going to the office and dealing with kids and teaching and whatever. And so I don't believe that we should just say, well, because of the, you know, pandemic, we're not able to do this. But I know there are some other people who have said they're going to quit in a month. So I'm just trying to get ahead of this, because I just don't think that we have gotten to the place we should be at this point. And we're not, I mean, like I said, I didn't even realize until this week that we had not officially approved the other focus areas. I mean, and if we're going to spend 2 months on one focus area, discussing every word of every paragraph, then we're never going to get it done.
Well, I don't disagree with you. I do want to comment, though, to say 2 things. One, that the process to approve the other ones was based on the fact that we had reached a consensus in May on those first 2. And we quickly after that agreed on those first 2 that was things we'd follow. And the rest of them, it was kind of a chicken and egg thing. We didn't know whether these other focus areas were going to be sufficient enough to include in the report because of our limitations. And we wanted to target those areas that people were interested in, that they thought was of value and what, you know, raised to the level of our abridged report. So we knew we were going to minimize our report. Were there a couple other things we were able to do given the time and the environment to finish? So we didn't really know. So that's why they weren't officially approved, because we need to investigate more to see if it was sufficient enough to be able to rise to the level to meet this abridged report that it was going to be abridged anyway. We were going to ask anyway for them to say, well, you might consider have an OC earlier, because we could not do a comprehensive evaluation because of we didn't want to interfere with the staff. We didn't want to spend money. We had a lot of members who had no longer the time to be able to do it. So those 3 conditions knew that we would not be able to do a comprehensive report. And so that's why we kind of at that tiered level to say, well, we didn't know whether or not any of these would be sufficient enough to put the time and the effort into continuing those to the level that we wanted to put in the report. So that's why we did it that way. I probably didn't communicate that well enough. But the other thing was, looking back at some of the other commissions, the 2000 commission started in July and finished in December, and did a comprehensive report from, it used to be the commission started in July to December, and they made it a year long because they said, well, there just wasn't time. So we're in July with equally the same amount of time that they had, if we had people that were able to and wanted to, had the commitment that wanted to do and could finish doing that. So I still felt that there was some table there that we could do, but it was solely determined whether or not people were willing and able to be able to do it in the time that we had remaining. So it wasn't a requirement for them that they had to finish it. That's why we had kind of that tiered thing. If you finished auditing and say, well, there's not enough here for us to spend the time and the analysis to finish that portion, it doesn't have to continue.
Andy had a comment.
Randy, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say that, I mean, I do agree with Ellen. I'm one concerned that we've gotten to a point where there's not enough of us to do the work where we're going to do it justice if we complete it. I know I've come across a couple of issues that no, or no, we're not going to do a thorough job on it. We're not going to, at the end of the thing, we have done a complete overview commission. So honestly, it might be, even though I don't necessarily like it, it might be best to complete what we have done, the two focus areas that are near completion, and disband with the caveat that we say it's not that there aren't any issues, it's that there's not enough time or people to do a correct overview commission, and ask that the commissioners convene one sooner than 10 years. We're not going to do a complete job. And we're not looking at every department. We're not going to be able to do a complete overview. So I don't know if it's better to just start where we're at and say, this is what we have. If you want an overview of the county, you need to reconvene in 2 years or 3 years. I don't know that it's necessary, but before 10 years, because this is not going to be a complete process. I mean, cherry picked departments to look at, based on our own, areas that we wanted to look at. So that is definitely not an overview. It's a cherry picking, and we're not going to be able to do the commission justice. So it might be time to say, like what we have now is, this is what needs to be done for the next people to be successful, and we suggest you do this in 2 or 3 years so that there is a complete overview done. I mean, I don't like it, but so we're not doing it justice.
Yeah, and I have to say that, Martin, having written the report that Timothy and I worked on, and having looked at what the 2010 commission was able to do, and they're not doing 1/100th of what they did. And that's what really started me thinking, my God, they made 147 recommendations across every department in the government. And actually, there were 45 departments, 147 recommendations. And I just started to realize that we're not doing this justice. And we're not able to put into it. We're not able to meet with people, which, I mean, some of the areas that we've, like the 2 things we've already done, telling them that they need to have a better process for appointing this commission and getting it through and getting it supported, and also looking at what the last commission did for, and I think Timothy would agree, was really valuable for us to say, oh my God, look what they were able to accomplish. What is going on that we're just stumbling and bumbling along? So I think that's when I kind of hit the wall. So I finished the report because I wanted to make sure that at the very least, commission can see that this is what should happen. I think that, you know, we should be thorough. We should be looking at all the things.
Well, I don't disagree with you, and it was impressive what they did, but you have to remember too that the vice chair of that commission said that she actually preferred the commission prior to that in terms of the work that they did and how they did it. That was too comprehensive and too deep. Well, that's not, I don't want to put words in her mouth, but she had felt that the 2000 was more successful because of the way they had done it and the way they presented their work. So that's, you know, that's it's a difference in approach for sure, but certainly we're not approaching either of them in terms of.
And I will add, Beth, that the vice chair actually disavowed some of those recommendations in her comments to us. So, you know, you can model on different things, but I do agree that we're not doing it justice, and that I agree with much of what's been said.
I say it as someone who has worked with, I spent all day, you know, I've worked with Junaid and Richard and Gail on the audit stuff and the PIO, and I put in a lot of work. And I'm just concerned that it's not going to be enough, and I don't want it at the end of the year for them to be, oh, well, we did the overview commission, now we're good for 10 years, and we're not good for 10 years. It needs to be redone. That needs to be deferred to another year, and so that it can actually be done properly. Like I feel negligent in knowing what I want to accomplish versus what I can accomplish, and I don't like it, but I think we're at a point where that's what needs to be done.
Well, I'm waiting to hear from you. I know that you did try to contribute. Do you have something to say, Paul?
Go ahead, Paul.
Maybe, Paul, do you hear me?
Well, I was going to say, this is Roy, and I was going to say, I've listened to you girls talk and appreciate everything you said. That doesn't mean that the commission can stay together and continue and present what has already been done as a commission, and then reconvene next year, the year after, with those recommendations that are in this presentation. That. No, if you want to leave, that's fine. Randy, if you want to leave, I understand.
Can we?
And that's okay.
So,
you know, leave the commission alone.
So let's just see if we have, well, any other comments from those that haven't spoken, and we'll go ahead and vote on the motion. So
I'd say that it occurs to me being much easier and much more appropriate to do a study of emergency management 18 months from now than right now in terms of the things that we're really interested in.
okay.
Madam Chair, can I make a quick comment, please? Sorry to take up so much time, but you know, Timothy just mentioned out of the 147 recommendations, they've only adopted 36%. So I'm not sure the total number is ever relevant. I have never felt that. I think it was more important to identify, and I think this commission has done a little bit of that. One other thing I'd like to request is before, I know Paul wants to make a comment, but before we take a vote, if you can just give us a 3 to 4 minute break, because this is such a major vote, that we can just take a deep breath for 4 or 5 minutes. I think it would help to come back and vote, if you are okay with that.
I don't have a problem with that. Paul, did you have something? Paul?
He left a comment speaking that he felt that the OC would be more valuable if it was done last year of every 4-year administration.
Oh, okay.
Right. I've been mostly working through the comments so as to avoid blowing everybody's ears out with my system here.
All right. this is, if Paul's done, I guess I've got a comment, and the first thing I'd like to address is how we went through the charter piece line by line. I thought that was a bit much to do every word, but on the other hand, because we are the OC, we all know what the issues are, and we're all, intimately involved in the whole thing. It's different than just having a subcommittee somewhere going over a bunch of information, doing the research and coming up with ideas. This thing is all going through us individually, and we all going through the process. And I think there's some justification for doing it like that. But I think in retrospect, it may be a little bit too much to do that way. I don't see us doing that with any other of these focus groups if we were going to do any more. Like I said, some of these have already kind of halfway through, so it'd be nice to see some of those come to completion if the people that are already working on them would like to keep working on them. But yeah, I'd like to say anything beyond the charter recommendations, I don't think we need to go into anywhere near the detail in the full OC. And I do recommend that we go ahead and adjust our quorum so that with any of this that wants to keep going can keep going. And again, not everything can be blamed on COVID, but there's between the lack of structure before we even came into this and through COVID and the rest of it, I think we definitely have some legitimate handicaps to what we've done. And we're not trying to do a full overview at this time. And we are, as far as I know, recommending another overview in the next couple of years. But if we've already identified some things and got some decent traction and some things, I'd like to see those completed if the people working on them would like to complete them.
Thank you. I think that's well said. Thank you.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, let's take, I'm sorry, Brandy. So I'm going to take that recommendation to take a 5-minute break. If anybody else has anything they'd like to add before we.
I'm gonna, can I just register my vote now?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I'm voting for my own motion. And so, thanks.
Thank you, Ellen. All right, yeah, we'll do it in 5 minutes at 7:52 on my clock.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll take a break, 5 minutes.
Thank you.
I have to say, Hunaid, this was a very well-timed break. I think it's kind of a Super Bowl halftime moment.
The Braves are winning 2-0 if anybody cares.
Yeah, thanks. I was just looking at the clock myself. They started earlier today, so I was thinking, well, that game's probably over.
If this is the halftime, where's the marching band?
We are in.
That was always my favorite part of high school football games. I went for the halftime show.
That was why I was there too. I was toting one of the tubas.
Is everybody back?
I think the Madam Chair back. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it looks like everybody's back.
Yep.
Yes, welcome back, everyone. I think everybody but Ellen, who wanted to record her vote, I guess, before she departed.
Yeah, I've recorded it.
Yeah.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, so we're going to have a vote on the motion. And it was, who seconded the motion?
Stephanie.
Stephanie. Right. Okay. So we'll go down the line here. Again, we'll start.
Read the motion one more time, please, Beth.
Read the motion.
To complete the 2 focus areas that have already been approved to present to the commission and disband.
Okay.
In the commission.
I don't know what you just said.
You were breaking up. Approve the motions present to the and then abandon the OC commission.
I think it was disband, as in end early.
Stephanie, could you read that one more time?
In the chat. You see it, Roy?
So Roy, she put it in the chat if you can read it.
No.
What?
Please.
Can you see it? So what you wrote, Ellen moved to complete the 2 focus areas that have already been approved and present to the commission, and then disband the overview commission.
Thank you. My vote is no.
Okay, we got a vote from Roy as no. Let me go down the line here. Now we'll start with Andy. Randy? I can't hear you.
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
Yes.
The voice keeps going on and off. What was Gail's response?
I vote yes.
Hunaid?
No.
Voice, was that me? No.
Paul? Paul? Okay.
Real sure at this point.
We'll come back to you. Richard?
Yes.
Roy is no. Stephanie? Sorry?
Yes.
Yes. Timothy? Tim?
I abstain.
Okay, we go back to Paul.
Given everything that's gone on so far, I'd like to see us reconvene next year. But it doesn't look like we're going to get that much done this year. So, yes.
Have I gotten everyone? Okay, and the chair abstains as well. So that gives us 7 and 5 is 12 is what we did today, right? Is that what you have?
I have 5 for yes, 3 for no, and 2 abstain.
I have 7 yeses.
Who are your yeses?
No, I just made marks. So Brandy was a yes. Gail was a yes. Richard was a yes. Stephanie was a yes. Tim was a yes. Ellen was a yes. How many of them?
Abstain.
Was a yes.
Tim abstained.
I'm sorry. Joe.
I was a yes. No, I mean, I was a no. I do not support Ellen's motion.
Yeah, my apologies, Joe. Thank you for, I'm so sorry.
So 6 for yes, 3 for no, 2 abstain.
Right?
Come on, Tim and Beth, we need you.
I do not feel comfortable forcing people into something out of a sense of obligation to me that they don't feel committed to.
And Joe, our yeses aren't that we're not behind what the OC is meant to do. My yes is because I am behind what the OC is meant to do, and we're not going to do what we're meant to do. I definitely support disbanding now and reconvening in a year or two when we could, those of us who are still here and still want to participate, we can reapply. And we can potentially at that point do a thorough and complete job. We're not doing a thorough and complete job.
That's assuming they even reconvene in 2 years. They just may wait another 10.
They also might not listen to anything we say now. I mean, we can't go on that assumption.
Why you're saying why can't the commission continue as it is, do what it's going to do, and then those that don't want to stay with the commission, that's fine, but let the commission stay.
Even the appearance that a full commission is being undertaken. There's not representation. There's not enough people to do the work. We're not saying that we don't want an overview commission. We're saying that we want more time to do a thorough job, to be able to look at all the departments. And we're bound by the 1 year.
I must say that the mayor actually had told us, if you remember back in May, we asked for an extension, but we voted also in May not to do that, so that we held ourselves to the year limitation because of the inability, again, for members to commit beyond the original year that they had signed up for.
Yeah, and I think it's not just we need more time, it's we need more people. It's a combination, in my view.
There's too much work for the amount of people that we have right now. I mean, I would reapply to be on it in a year or 2 years or whatever. I mean, it's not that I don't believe we're not doing it justice. And
Randy, I think you're admitting defeat. I think
It does kind of capture what John's concerns was and why he decided to do what he did. He felt absolutely clearly that, those two areas were fine. That's what we needed to do. We needed to close that up, close the loop there, and finish up and move on.
Yeah, and I don't see a yes vote. I certainly don't see my yes vote, speak for myself, as admitting defeat. I think it's recognizing that we've got two products that are valuable and that we have eroding people power, and we need to wrap up where we are.
the commission can continue on, and whatever work it can do is still in the future. We've got a few more months before the end of the year, and perhaps another OC commission will convene for 2021. And those who want to participate can. And if you don't, well, that's fine too. Maybe it's 2022. Who knows? But I cannot see the history of us leaving something historical here. This is we couldn't complete the work even though we finished only so much. Maybe this is all we can complete. That's fine.
Stephanie's left a comment in the log.
Sorry.
Stephanie's left a comment in the log just so everybody knows.
Okay, and my comment here would be, I made a suggestion a couple of months ago of what about extending this for another year? Is this, anybody want to do that? And we can go ahead and use the October to December grand jury, possibly if we get any agreement out of the commission, to go ahead and supplement whoever wants to continue on for another year, to make it a continuous process and hopefully get a true overview report out of it. But those of us that stay would just be a little ahead of the game in knowing what's going on and get the other people up to speed. Just a suggestion.
I wanted to tell you, we had tried when we started this organization to be able to fill those that had decided to retire from the commission, and there was not a mechanism for that. So there's no mechanism now, and the recommendations we're making in our first focus area will try to take care of that problem of not being able to resolve when you lose members or to adjust the time frame or the working of the OC. So hopefully the recommendations we make can address that. But right now there's no mechanism for that, and you're not going to find that the DA won't support it. Even we don't have a DA yet, but the assistant DA, the acting DA will not require the grand jury to appoint anymore or to adjust it. They will simply go by what the charter says. And so they're pretty confident that there was no way to modify that situation. And that's kind of one of the things that hobbled us in the beginning as well. So I think we have a binary choice here, and we voted. So I think the vote has passed by the commission. I do believe. I'm going to double check, but Stephanie is still with us here. You got the numbers, right?
Yeah.
So the vote has passed, and we're going to modify now our procedures for the rest of the time to be able to complete what we've done so far. Those members who have additional input, there's a potential that some of this that may be useful can go into the original approved focus areas, but I think we are kind of bound to follow the vote here now. So the reason I abstained is because I completely support both sides, right? So and as the chair, I just have to follow the vote here. And I do understand. I'm an old medevac pilot, so I would do anything. I'd fly into anything to get anything done, to do the very last thing. That's not necessarily the right approach for this kind of work, right? So we will have strong validity with the two documents and the two focus areas that we worked on so far, and we'll have a lot of strong support there because they're going to want to implement. If you have a smaller number of things to implement, I think the mayor and commission will be more receptive to what we give them. And therefore, we can set the platform for the next OC to be able to start on a better platform and to be able to go forward in a better way. None of these things that we've seen so far with the government that we really want to address is going to go away. These are things that are there. Some of them may resolve on their own without the OC telling them that this is something we think they should take care of. It may resolve on its own. But if they're endemic, if they're ingrained problems or ingrained positive things in our government, these things are going to still be there for the next OC commission. So we're not going to necessarily be the Lone Ranger and save the government from terrible problems that they might have been able to take care of. If only we had let them know this year before December. We would like to, I would like to think that our work would have been good enough for that. But really, it's the platform that we're going to set for the next commission that's going to be our contribution. And all these areas that we're interested in that we'd love to fix, that we know are wrong, that some of them that are even easy fixes that we know, or things we'd love to the government to know that we think that they can do better. We are lucky to have a great little government here, a very responsive government, a good government, not a perfect government, not perfect people anyway. A lot of issues, a lot of individual problems, but in general, we have a good government here. And that's why most of us are here, because we want to help our government to be even better. So, so we're lucky there. And I think they will listen to what we provide if we make it even more narrow now. And we can stop flailing around, as Ellen liked to say. We can stop trying to do our best to do things that we're not really sure of and not enough time and expertise to complete. And so I don't think it's a bad thing personally. Like I say, I'd go right into the depths of where, because that's the way I'm taught. I'm a library person, that's what we do. But in this particular case, it may be more valuable to be able to recharge our guns and retreat and ready for the next one. Yes, Richard.
Yes. Do we need to establish a process for completing what we have going in the first two focus groups?
We're going to focus now on these two areas. We're going to start actually writing the report itself, which will have, y'all have the outline for that. So a lot of it will be explaining and supporting a lot of the actual findings that we have in those two focus areas. And then we got to figure out when and how we're going to present it. And then, we can do it faster or slower. I mean, I have the month of August to work all on this. But most people's time is really starts getting very difficult in September and October. And we just don't know what's going to happen. I mean, things are getting harder. They're not getting easier.
Beth, would it be possible for you to consider the work that lays ahead that you just laid out, and then provide us with a timeline that you would recommend? I mean, I agree with the things you just said. I think it'd be helpful for us to have a revised timeline for the remaining activities. Is that something
I
you
think
can
for the
do?
most part, many of the members that really would like to be done. So they don't want to go to meetings anymore. They don't want to have to go through, and we've done a lot of the detail work. So most of it's just going to be from the end then is for the members that remain to approve, the first draft, the second draft, the third draft, how we go through the report, right? And we don't necessarily have to do that in a meeting format, although I think it'll be good for us to get together those of us that are remaining to finish this up. But I will do that, yes.
Thank you.
Any other comments of support? I don't know what to say. I appreciate y'all so much. And I understand the struggle that many of you are going through. Believe me, I understand it. So all of you who want to continue to do this, I think you'll have an opportunity in 2 years. I think if we do our argument right, they'll recommission another OC in 2 years. I don't think they should do it next year. I think they need to do it the year after. And you'll have the experience of what works and what doesn't work, at least from this perspective.
Yeah, it doesn't make sense to reconvene until the vaccine comes out.
Right.
Yeah.
Until the government gets to come back to some normalcy as well, whatever that's going to be.
Right, exactly.
Right. Now, there's also the possibility with a lot of things that we would like to pass on to the mayor and commission that may not be in the formalcy of a report or from the commission. If we would like to be able to capture some of that and be able to find a forum to be able to pass some of that information that's not formally in a report, I would like to be able to facilitate that because there may be some things here that are useful for the government that may be helpful even in the next year or two. So if you feel that if you have that way, I will try to find a way to do that. It would not be within the formal OC report, but maybe, as I said, I'm all for trying to capture things that may be valuable for the government. And if we have things we can contribute, it won't carry the weight of the report. But again, if you have a receptive government, and I think we do have in general a very receptive government in trying to solve problems and do the best they can, maybe we can have a forum to be able to do that, so we don't lose everything else that's not in those two reports.
Madam Chair, I'm sorry to interrupt. I'm actually at my time. Can I motion for us to wrap up this meeting?
Yes. Do I have a second?
I second.
Okay.
Scale.
All opposed? So the motion is carried. Good night, everyone, and thank you.
Mark's Beth there at the end. I found them very helpful.
Good night.
And it doesn't mean this is
Good
the
night,
last
all.
time we're meeting. Just means this doesn't mean it's the last time we're meeting. This is
No,
we're coming.
No, we still have work to do. It's just
Yeah, we still have work to do.
Right. We still have to finish what we have started, what's been approved. What we just agreed on was not to follow all the other areas that we were working on. So think, all the ramifications of that, for those of you that have things in the air right now, so we've got to close that up. And again, maybe there's a way to be able to capture some of that that's important.
Well, for the auditor committee, I was totally into it, and I have a bunch of recommendations. I even spoke with the auditor in Asheville, North Carolina, in length as to what they were doing right. What I was going to do, if it was not approved, was go to our commissioners and give them recommendations of how we can make the process for the Office of Operational Analysis. But if you have a way, everyone here knows at least one or two commissioners really well. And if you have a more of a, I guess, a formal way, or like you said, it's not part of the report, but another way to present it, I'm all ears. I can wait for that. There's no rush into any of it. You know how
I
slow
think it's a very important area.
works.
I think it's an area that we're not leveraging to our advantage in the government. So when we're not using the tools that we have, and part of that is, I do believe, is part of the evolution of our government. So it is kind of connected to this unification bit, that the size of our government, the maturity of our government, when we did unification, the idea was to have a more sophisticated by size and capability. And, internal analysis and auditing and inspector general and all those kind of functions that can be very tough to figure out where they belong in an organization this size. So part of the problem with our government is our size. We're kind of in that funny, I always say we're big little, or a little big town.
Yes.
We have a great amount of sophistication in some things, and yet we are not resourced in depth enough in some things to be able to use tools that are good for these kind of organizations. And the auditing thing, to me, that's an example of that. There are other examples, but that's an example. And I think the government would absolutely improve, would absolutely benefit from being able to use that tool in a better way. And how that's done is really, just like this commission, how it's done is almost as important as what you're doing. So how it's done will determine its level of success.
Yes.
And so that's why I was very interested in your work on that too, because it is a glaring issue, and it's not unknown. So to give them some tools to figure out how to solve that, how to make it better, would be something really valuable for our government.
Well, the work that has been done on that area, I feel like probably is very close to a completion point where it could be completed. I'm not sure that it was large enough to be its own focus area, like in and of itself. Like I was going to maybe suggest if we had like ancillary focus for like the smaller areas, like the public information.
Did you look back in the last commission and the commission report there, how they dealt with the audit office and audit issues? Was there thing there to be able to connect your stuff with the second focus area? You may be able to incorporate that into his process based on what happened in previous.
And it might be Commissioner Link seems extremely receptive. If it comes down to it, if we could make a formal report to the audit committee or to the mayor and commission as far as that one area, Like the work doesn't need to be lost. I mean, there's no
Oh, Brandy,
reason.
I'm ahead on that. That was exactly what I was going to do. But it's not that I've lost trust on any one commissioner. I was going to send it to all of them or copy all of them, but send it to Commissioner Link directly with the CC to others.
Right.
Absolutely. I'm planning to do that and reach out to all of you who would like to join me after you have read the report.
Let's see if we can find a good way to do that without kind of undermining the decision that the commission made today, so that we're able to, again, if it's good and valuable and useful, even in the near term, I think there's maybe an obligation to be able to capture that in a way and
Yeah.
But you want to make sure you keep your credibility, and you want to make sure that you're not, like you're at odds with your other commission members.
No, I mean, I would not be, well, we cannot anymore present it as part of the overview commission. I was just going to present it as a group of individuals from the commission who would join me looking at it. We generally agree, no two people agree 100%, but generally agree, and then present it as private citizens.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, we're out
Let's
of
see if
it
we
for
can
the,
find a kind of more formalized way to be able to transfer that. And I'm with
Thank you.
because I think it's a.
Oh, we got plenty of time now. We have nothing but time.
Captured in the right. Very good.
Yeah, one motion by Ellen has given us all, I'd say, at least dozens of hours.
Yeah, well, but I know that Ellen kind of represented a huge group of people, some of whom have already left, and some that hadn't joined us even in the meeting tonight, who have silently left the commission. So I know that she represented that level of frustration has been really at our heels from the beginning.
And I know it's not about Ellen. You know, I've known Ellen for 16 years, since 2004, when she was working on Alice Kidman's campaign. And of course, we've known her ex-husband for a long time. I totally felt for her. On every email I sent her, I would ask her, I said, how are you surviving with so much writing and so much? I mean,
she does a great job. She's
it was
fantastic.
crazy. She shouldn't have been doing this, but even if she hadn't done this,
it's a thing, and so we really should cut this short because we're probably still online.
We're still live.
Yeah. So Stephanie, are you still with us? Stephanie Maddox? Have we lost our host?
Oh, she's there.
There? I don't hear her.
It went.
Yeah, I'm not getting.
I saw her unmute. I have.
Can you guys hear? Can you hear me?
There you
oh
are.
yeah, now we can.
I'm still here. I've been listening and I'm still engaged.
Okay, very
Until
good.
you all are finished, I'm finished. I'm here.
All right, very good. Thank you, Stephanie.
Oh, you're welcome.
Good night, everybody.
Good night. Bye.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night, y'all.
Bye.
Have a nice evening. It's been a joy.
Mhm.
Oh wait, I do have
Joey.
one question. Who was the second for the motion to adjourn? I missed that. I missed that for Steph for the minutes.
I don't know. I'd have to look back.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was Richard. I could be wrong.
Okay, I'll put that and ask him to clarify.
Yeah.
Peace and love,
Okay.
Paul.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Good night.
Bye.